Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07 on this Wednesday in your nation's capital. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company. We've got a busy one ahead of us. Pretty good one, too, if I don't say so myself. If I do say so myself. Heather Hunter's our executive producer. She did all the booking. I don't know why I'm trying to brag about what a great show we've got. It's her show. We're just, you know how it works, Bethany Mandel. We're just little chess pieces that she puts in place and do what she tells us.
Yeah, I'm literally only here because she told me to be here.
Literally.
You at least have your name on the show.
By the way.
She just tells me.
Coming up at 6:35, Kel Thomas will be our guest. 7:05, Virginia State Senator Bryce Reeves, latest out of Richmond. 7:35, Frederick County Sheriff Chuck Jenkins. They went and did it. State Senate passed a bill forcing sheriffs to not work with ICE on a federal level. 8:05 brings us Jorge Venturi. He's a reporter with the Daily Color News Foundation. He's got a target on his back because he's covering Minneapolis. And at 8:35, Ambassador Rick Grinnell, president of the Trump Kennedy Center, TKC, we'll ask him about those renovations that everyone's talking about. That's coming up. It's Larry O'Connor. Good morning, Bethany Mandel, proprietor of the Mom Wars podcast and Substack.
Thanks so much, Larry. I posted a new piece and recorded a podcast yesterday for the Mom Wars, so I really feel like I'm actually doing the thing.
You know what? You know what you're doing? You're creating content.
There you go. I'm a content creator.
That's what we do. Speaking of the Kennedy Center, there's a lot of opinions about what's going on there. Over on the Potomac, with regard to the announcement a couple of days ago that it will be shutting down as of July 4th for approximately 2 years of renovations because their building is in such disarray and disrepair. And the conventional wisdom in town and in elite media circles is, well, all right, here's what's really happening. There's acts are canceling left and right because they don't want to be associated with Trump, and artists are refusing to perform there.
Of course.
And the audience is staying away, and there's, empty seats and poor attendance. And so the only way to save face through the rest of the presidency is to just close it down, and they came up with this story.
So Rick Grinnell's really playing the long game in this scenario because he's been talking about how poorly run from a financial standpoint, but also from a structural standpoint, the entire time he has had possession of the Kennedy Center since literally day one. And if you walk around inside, you will find that he's not lying. I helped work we had the playwrights on the show, and I was helping them.
The October 7th play.
Thank you.
Worked with, yes.
It's 5 a.m. We're still all just waking up together.
Fella McAleer and Annie McElhaney. Yeah. It's 5 a.m. for me too, Bethany, but I'm on it.
I'm getting there, Larry. So I helped them on the show, and so I was walking behind stage and backstage and in the bowels of the Kennedy Center, and I did that as well when I wrote a piece that everyone should go check out for the Washington Examiner. I'll tweet it right now. But you see that it's true. The seats are very old. The lights, the sound, the HVAC. And you brought up a fantastic point that I just keep on stealing now for myself whenever I talk to people about it. The asbestos.
I'm speculating that it's asbestos. We'll ask Grinnell about that.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
It's of that era where if you do anything, all of the steel and all of the infrastructure of that building is going to be coated with asbestos because that was what they did back then, especially for buildings that were designed for public assembly.
When I was a kid, I used to play in my dad's attic, and he had asbestos up there, and it felt like jumping on a cloud. It was really fun to play in. Am I going to die?
Nah, well, maybe. What they did, eventually, yes. I guarantee you are going to die. What they did back then, and this is what we had to deal with, because I literally have experience renovating a theater built in the same era. Right. And they would mix asbestos with concrete, and then they would blow it onto all of the steel.
Oh, my God.
So all of the steel beams were coated with this hardened asbestos fire protection. And again, they didn't know that it caused cancer. So the whole idea was this is a great economic and wonderful way to fireproof the building. And again, as I say, especially in a building that is for public assembly. When the World Trade Center buildings came down in New York, one of the biggest hazards there was all the asbestos that was in the air for the cleanup team and the first responders and everything. So I will ask Grinnell about that, if that's a factor in the decision on how to shut this down based on the renovations that are at play here. You're right, everything that you just saw, but that's all the cosmetic stuff, the seats and the HVAC and all that jazz. I've gotten to know a couple of the musicians at the National Symphony Orchestra over the years, and what goes on behind the scenes, the stuff that you don't see in the locker rooms, in the dressing rooms, in the set shops and the prop rooms and all of that stuff. It's an absolute pigsty. And what's interesting is that nobody is lacking in opinion about this. And it's funny, whenever there's a school shooting, everybody's an expert on guns and mental illness. Whenever there's, during COVID, everybody was an expert on communicable diseases. And now everybody's an expert on building renovations and performing arts centers. And they're not, but they like to pretend to be. Congresswoman Shelley Pingree, who is one of the people that oversees the funding of the Kennedy Center, she made a comment to the Wall Street Journal that said the man has destroyed the place. He's run it into the ground financially. He's made it a place where performers don't want to perform and individuals don't want to attend performances. Now, on the face of it, the first two things are not true. He's not destroyed the Kennedy Center. He has not run it into the ground financially. In fact, listen, you can't lie about numbers. And the numbers are there that he has actually raised money and bolstered the bottom line and the balance sheet of the Kennedy Center for the first time in decades.
What's frustrating about that statement is that the previous, leadership of the Kennedy Center lied to Congress. They get appropriations and a great deal of their budget from Congress, and they lied to Congress about the fact that the Kennedy Center took on debt in order to do renovations, which were ill-conceived and a terrible idea. The reach is empty and a money waster. But they took on debt to build onto the Kennedy Center. Mm-hmm. And then a balloon payment is coming due. And so they were supposed to be paying into a debt reserve so that when that bill came due, they had the money.
Right.
Seems pretty standard stuff. Mm-hmm. And the Kennedy Center were running so far into the red that they were pulling money out of that account instead of adding to it. And they were pulling money just to make payroll. Right. They were running cash negative. And that's a violation of their fiduciary responsibility to Congress. And they were lying about it. And no one seems to care. And it was so bad that the CFO referred it to the Department of Justice.
The no one seems to care part is, I think, the biggest element here, because you've got the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and the New York Times, and again, all of these experts now screaming, I can't believe they're doing this to the Kennedy Center. And yet, as all of this was going on, all of the shell game with the finances, and by the way, the president was making 7 figures, not 6 figures, 7 figures while overseeing this disaster on the Potomac. It had been going on, and the building was in neglect. And if anybody even bothered to go to the Kennedy Center, they could see it. They could see how worn the seats were. They could see that the lights weren't functioning. They could see the bathroom. They could actually pick up the smell and the odor in the public bathrooms. Imagine what it's like backstage. And they never wrote anything about it. They never said anything about it. They never expressed any concern over it. I also want to hold out the possibility for all of our listeners, being as fair and honest and straightforward as I can, that two things can be true here. It could be true that all of those things that we just detailed were a problem at the Kennedy Center and nobody cared and they let it run down. And at the same time, everybody sat and evaluated the situation and said, listen, the fact is our attendance is down. We've got some performers who are canceling their bookings. And honestly, probably this is the best time to do this renovation because of that. That both things can be true. We'll ask Rick. I'm going to ask Rick Grinnell. He's going to join us at 8:30. I'm going to say, is it true that attendance is down? Is it true that bookings are down? Is that one of the reasons why this is a good time to do the renovation? I mean, why not? Yeah. Ask that. And we will. We'll ask Ambassador Rick Grinnell, president of the Kennedy Center, joining us at 8:35. First, though, it's 5:15. Grinnell also posted on social media, and I'm quoting him, "Our goal has always been to not only save and permanently preserve the center, but to make it the finest arts institution in the world. It desperately needs this renovation, and temporarily closing the center just makes sense. It will enable us to better invest our resources, think bigger, and make the historic renovations more comprehensive. It also means we'll be finished faster. President Trump has a reputation for delivering large construction projects on time, under budget, and beautifully finished. This will be a brief closure in retrospect, and I am confident this sets the stage for a stronger, revitalized national cultural and entertainment complex." And again, if you put the pieces together, that does make the most sense. If you want to get this done, you want to get it done faster and better, unencumbered by audiences and having to juggle the logistics of getting the ballet in and the symphony in, and this venue's closed, so the opera will be there, and this venue is closed, and so now we'll move over there. To shut it down and get it done without having to deal with that. Again, I hate to do this, but I do have experience. I had to renovate a theater. We had just closed a show. And we had the opportunity to bring Andrew Lloyd Webber's Sunset Boulevard into Los Angeles at the Shubert Theater as the American premiere, starring Glenn Close, before Broadway. But Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber did not like our balcony in our theater. He had done Cats at our theater before, and he never liked the balcony because it was kind of high and far away from the stage. And so we ended up doing, at the time, it was cheap in retrospect. It was like a $6 million renovation that extended the balcony and mezzanine sections like 5 rows closer to the stage. It was quite a feat because you're basically rebuilding the balcony of a theater, of an existing theater in real time. And we had to work around the clock. The only way we could get that done, obviously, is if you close the theater and you can work round the clock and you can get it done. And we got it done. We got it done in like less than 6 months. That makes sense. The best way to renovate a place is to shut it down completely, and then you can really do it right. And if you think about it, it's been around for, over 50 years. It is a dated building. It always looks nice from far away, lit up on the Potomac. But when you get in there, it's got some issues. Yeah, and this is the best way to achieve that.
It sounds like they're doing really serious work. Trump said in the Oval Office, "I'm not ripping it out. I'll be using the steel, so we're using the structure. We're using some of the marble comes down, but when it's open, it'll be brand new and really beautiful." That sounds like they're gutting the place, like completely gutting the place. And it's funny, I anecdotally was talking to some of the staff of the Kennedy Center when I was there last week. And, I know the narrative that like acts are canceling and it's in real financial strait. And it was the night before the Melania premiere. And I was like, "Oh, are you excited for things to like kind of slow down a little bit?" And the people I was talking to, I don't want to like expose them because, it wasn't an on the record conversation, but they were like, "We're so tired. We're like,
they must be exhausted.
There's nothing but bookings." He's like, there's no break for me on the horizon. So I also thought that was surprising because it sounded like they were surprised by this announcement. Mm-hmm. But he was telling me like, we are so busy here. I don't buy into the narrative that things were dire.
Well, I think from my perspective, knowing the booking schedules for arts organizations and also the announcement that the opera had decided to move venues and they would not be there anymore, they were in a place where they're putting together their next season, or they're trying to look at shows that would tour in and Broadway shows that were touring in, and there in fact is a challenge in getting shows to come into the Trump Kennedy Center because of protests and because of so instead what they've done is booked special events. The special events they're very busy with, and
that's who I was talking to, someone on that side.
It's the stuff that all of the special events that they've done there, from FIFA to the Melania movement and other things. Yes, this administration has used the Trump Kennedy Center more than any administration I can remember as a venue for these big splashy announcements, special events, and conventions and things like that, which you use a venue for. But it's designed to do Broadway musicals, operas, ballets, symphony orchestras, and those bookings, that they are having a challenge with that.
Yeah.
It's 5:12. Again, president of the Trump Kennedy Center, Rick Grinnell, joins us at 8:35. Right now it's 5:23.
Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
5:37. It's O'Connor and Company. What's going on? Thanks for tuning in here to O'Connor and Company this Wednesday morning. And because it's Wednesday at 6:35, we'll stop for a moment and talk to Cal Thomas. Then at 7:05, Virginia State Senator Bryce Reeves on what's going on in Richmond. 7:35 brings us Frederick County Sheriff Chuck Jenkins on how Annapolis and the Democrats there are trying to keep him from keeping the county safe. 8:05 is Jorge Ventura, Daily Caller, been covering what's going on in Minneapolis, and now, well, he's got a target on his back from the activists. And then at 8:35, Ambassador Rick Grinnell, president of the TKC. It's Larry O'Connor with Bethany Mandel. Good morning, Bethany.
Good morning, Larry. What a wonderful conversation we're having here this morning.
And it will continue, although this isn't really a wonderful topic. It's actually terrifying. As the mother of Savannah Guthrie, as we've been mentioning since it first came on our radar Monday morning, is still at large, still missing. Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old. We've got a little bit more details on what police found, including some blood and evidence that suggests that she had been abducted. TMZ is now claiming that they received a ransom note, but of course it hasn't been authenticated. They've handed it over to authorities. Ms. Guthrie has now confirmed that she is not going to be covering the Winter Olympics for the network in Milan. She was supposed to co-host the opening ceremonies there and sort of act as one of the co-hosts of the entire program. Which begins Friday the 6th. Well, that's like this Friday. Crazy. The Olympics are already on us. For his part, the president was asked about this during a Oval Office signing ceremony, and here's what Trump had to say, cut 3.
Have you been briefed on Savannah Guthrie's mom missing in Arizona?
I think it's terrible.
Would you commit to more federal agents, like helping out on the search?
Sure, I would. I'm going to call her later on. I think it's a terrible thing. I always got along very good with Savannah. Very unusual situation, but we're going to find out.
A couple of things that I want to unpack there, but first, sort of on the human side of this, Bethany, I think everybody who has a parent. I just lost my dad at the age of almost 88. My mom is, right up there too. I think it's one of the things that we all are terrified of, that something like this could happen. And have you've probably been reading about this story more than I have. Mm-hmm. Was her mother living alone at the age of 84?
Yeah. So her mom was living alone, and there's some really interesting components of this story that are strange. It doesn't appear to have been forced entry, but it was a violent abduction. There was blood, there was upheaval. They immediately knew it was an abduction. So this story is also sad and frustrating because she was on heart medication. She was on medication that she needed to take every day. And if she's not getting it, things can go very bad, very south. And so I think that they're really praying for a quick resolution to this because she doesn't have, a lot of time to be, away from medical care.
Yeah. In fact, I believe that there's a device connected to her.
Her pacemaker.
Her pacemaker that syncs up with her Apple Watch, and that has stopped syncing. That's scary. Also, the Ring camera from the front door is missing. So it's presumed that it was either removed before the entry or it was taken with them. Although, if there's any footage from the Ring camera, that would be saved on the cloud, I would suspect. It's all very terrifying. And yes, a blood trail was found, not just inside the home, but also trailing outside the home. This is in Pima, Arizona, by the way, one of the counties on the southern border. You heard there the president commit to extending federal law enforcement, if necessary, to help find Savannah Guthrie's mother, and that's a great thing. And, of course, local law enforcement is being mobilized to help find Nancy Guthrie as well, which I think should give everybody just a moment to pause and take a deep breath as we have seen the demonization of law enforcement, federal law enforcement, charged with enforcing immigration law and investigating immigration crimes and crimes made by illegal immigrants. And, of course, local law enforcement, like Chuck Jenkins, we just mentioned, the sheriff is going to be joining us. If something like this happens in Frederick County, it's Chuck Jenkins and his deputies who are charged with trying to get to the bottom of it and find this missing person. And yet you've got politicians in suits and you've got radical activists in the streets who are undermining their ability to do their job. But when the chips are down and you need somebody, that's who you call. It's all we've got. That's who you're relying on to actually fix this problem and get things done. And my friend Chris DeGaulle, a radio talk show host for a competing network, really put together a great video about this on his Instagram that I really suggest people watch and share, because that's being lost in the mix here, considering the national conversation we've been having. And here's the president saying, absolutely, they can have all the federal authorities that they want. I'm sorry, I thought we're not cooperating with federal authorities. I'm sorry to make it about that, but this is a perfect example of why law enforcement deserve our support all the time, and they shouldn't have to be doing their job looking over their shoulder the way they have been.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a really important point that I hadn't honestly considered myself, so I'm glad that you said that. But this happens every time liberals, they're talking about defunding the police, and then they're like, wait a second, where are the police? I called yes. 65 seconds ago. Where are they? You can't have your cake and eat it too. This is pretty much the definition of that, idea. I hope that President Trump doesn't make this point, because it would come off not great coming from him.
Yeah, it's not for him to say.
But I think it's important for the rest of us to say, and I'm glad that you said it, because it's very true. I hope, based on how they're conducting this investigation, I think it's interesting that, there's got to be footage from other houses and on the block and all of those things, and we've seen none of that. The authorities have been very tight-lipped.
Yeah.
I hope it's because they have some ideas, and they're just trying to chase down the leads that they know they have.
It is interesting that there was no forced entry. I think that's a key clue in terms of tightening the circle of people who would have been able to get into that home. In terms of the block, I've seen an overhead shot of the home. It seems like it's kind of remote. It's not your typical subdivision cul-de-sac situation. So we shall see. In the meantime, scary stuff indeed. It's 5:43. Well, a topic that we discuss here on this program and really analyze and break down and give our analysis on Bethany Mandel, it's never really, really, really complete until we hear from the ladies on The View. That's the motto I live by. And finally, yesterday morning, Sunny Hostin, Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, they all commented on the Don Lemon situation. Where do you think they fell on it? Do you think that they thought maybe it wasn't good for these people to barge into a church full of Christians worshiping on a Sunday to make their political point and terrorize and traumatize the congregation and their children who were in a daycare downstairs and they couldn't get rescued because of these agitators? Do you think they were condemning those behaviors, or do you think they thought Don Lemon was a hero?
I think they thought this was an existential threat to our nation, and that we're already living in a fascist dictatorship, and that is evidenced by the fact that they are able to talk about it on national television for an hour a day. Yes. For an hour a day.
By the way, it is a bit of an existential threat to the freedoms that we hold dear if we allow people to come in and barge into a place of worship and terrorize children while they're practicing their First Amendment right of religion. But they're not quite there yet. Here's Sunny Hostin, cut 4.
And I think people need to remember that journalists embed themselves in protests, embed themselves with the government, embed themselves in campaigns, embed themselves in police activity all the time. That is the practice of journalism. So the fact that he was at a protest embedded in it is perfectly normal. It is not a crime to be a journalist.
No, but even if he was protesting, it is guaranteed by the Constitution.
But he was not protesting. He was embedded.
Under the First Amendment, he has a right to be covering it.
If you go to the ACLU, they will send you the Constitution.
Yeah.
If you haven't read it lately, it's really interesting. You'd be surprised at all the things that should be happening but are not.
I do love that the left is now embracing the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Good for them. They should read all of it. Again, the fact that the worship of these people's private faith in a church, in their private property, was disrupted and people were terrorized. That doesn't occur to them. But about this whole idea of embedding, yes, embedding with police, embedding with the military happens. That's not the same as embedding with criminals. If you embed with MS-13 and MS-13 goes and rapes and kidnaps and kills, and you're just there to document it and maybe talk to the victims while they're being attacked, I don't think that you're in the clear there in terms of First Amendment rights and journalism. And one other thing, Steve Baker is an investigative journalist for Blaze Media. He was arrested by the FBI because he was embedded with protesters on January 6th. He didn't participate. He just documented the January 6th events for Blaze Media, and he was arrested. And I don't remember Sonny or Whoopi or Joy saying anything about his First Amendment rights as a journalist.
I was talking about this yesterday with another friend in the media, and I was telling her that of my regrets, and I'm glad that I have this opportunity to say it on the air and say it publicly, of my regrets in my career, I've never been shy about saying things that were unpopular and could get me canceled. I immediately called out the Jussie Smollett stuff. I immediately called out the COVID stuff, and I got canceled for both very hard, and I was vindicated in the end. My biggest career regret, I think, on that front is not saying anything about the unbelievably overdone arrests of January 6th.
The abuse of power on January 6th.
Total abuse of power. And I was scared by January 6th, and so I didn't say anything. And it was cowardly. And I'm annoyed with myself for it, because you're absolutely correct. We should have all in conservative media been screaming from the rooftops about him, and we weren't. And that was a real sort of betrayal in my mind. I feel like I betrayed what I believe.
I appreciate you saying that, but it's not like you were on the rooftop banging pots and pans saying, "That's right, arrest them all." You were, it's like, which is exactly what the ladies on The View were. So, right. Hold your breath. Are you ready? Because that wasn't the stupidest, vilest thing said on The View yesterday having to do with Don Lemon. That award goes to Joy Behar. All right, hold your breath and hold your nose so you don't have to smell it, because here it comes. I don't think I've ever heard anything more odious on network television. Go ahead.
So, I mean, all I can say is it's in the Constitution, the right to protest. And he wasn't even there protesting. He was there as a journalist.
Yeah, correct.
And I think they want to use him as some kind of an example to intimidate other journalists.
Yeah.
But, I was reading something the other day about World War II. When the Americans liberated Dachau.
Here we go.
After World War II, after the Holocaust, Dwight D. Eisenhower said, take pictures of these concentration camps, because years will go by and people will not believe this happened.
Yeah.
So this administration does not really like somebody like Don Lemon, who has a camera, who has a position like we do in a way, to speak to the people and tell them what really is going on. God bless Dwight D. Eisenhower and Don Lemon. Yeah. And I would just like to add that I think they've made him more popular than ever.
Yes.
He now will triple his
all right, enough. There you go. Don Lemon barging into that church in St. Paul is the same as Eisenhower having soldiers record what they found at the concentration camps during the Holocaust. Take it away, Bethany.
The View has a Holocaust problem. I want to remind our listeners that in exactly, actually, to the day almost, in 2022, February 2nd, 2022, Whoopi Goldberg was suspended for 2 weeks because of comments she made on The View about the Holocaust. They were that bad that she was suspended from The View for 2 weeks.
I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah. I have Irish Alzheimer's. I'd never forget a slight. And this is the problem when you have a half Irish Jew. Like, I hold a grudge. And she said on the air that race was not a factor in the Holocaust.
That's right.
We have a Holocaust education problem in our country, and I think that we should start it with the hosts of The View, because this is not the Holocaust. It's not in the same ecosystem. There's like this pie chart of like, is this the Holocaust? And it's like, the one line leans out, like, is it between 1942 and 1945? If the answer is no, then no, it's not the Holocaust.
And did 6 million Jews get murdered in the process? Yeah, thank you. Let's let the Holocaust stand alone as the greatest evil of the one of the greatest evils of the 20th century, if not the greatest evils of the 20th century, and just let it be that. Because to paraphrase a famous line from one of the most incredible films ever made in my lifetime, The Incredibles, if everything is the Holocaust, then nothing is the Holocaust.
Correct.
And that's the problem, Joy Behar. You should know better. It's 5:54.